In this video, I'll be demonstrating how to set up a WhiteInk file in Illustrator CC 2017 for the HP Indigo 7900 press. If you have an earlier version of Illustrator, the same instructions apply. You just need to be familiar with where to find the panels and the tools that we'll be using. This design only uses WhiteInk and it has no CMYK or any other specialty inks applied to it. Now before we get started, I'll point out that many times the design using WhiteInk will be shown to a client as a client proof, and usually it'll have a layer simulating a dark color of paper so that the client can see how the design will look once it's printed. But in order to submit a press-ready file to TPSi, please delete or turn off this layer so that we aren't accidentally printing a base layer of CMYK ink on an already colored paper. Also, be sure that you don't have multiple designs placed as PDFs on a single artboard. This is incorrect. You'll need to have every single design on its own artboard properly sized to the dimensions of that design. If you're unsure how to set that up, please see our video on how to set up proper trims and bleeds and proofing your PDF files in the specific Adobe program that you're using. In this case, it's Illustrator CC 2017. In order to set up WhiteInk in Illustrator CC, we'll be using three basic panels: the Layers panel, the Swatches panel, and the Attributes panel. If any of these panels are not already visible, you can bring them up by simply going to the window in the menu bar and selecting whichever panels that you need to appear. Now as you can see, I already have a simple business card design in 100% K that I'm going to be converting to WhiteInk. If you're just starting your design, then you can begin using a WhiteInk swatch from the beginning, but before we get to that, let's start with setting up the proper layer. In your Layers panel, you'll need to change the name to WhiteInk. Simply double-click on the layer and it will pull up a panel where you can rename the layer. Now in 2017, you can simply just go click on that layer and you'll see it's already highlighted in blue, and you can just type in WhiteInk exactly the way I have it here. This is case sensitive. If you spell it any other way, it won't work because this is the labeling that we've used to program our HP Indigo 7900. So it needs to be capital W, lowercase HITE, space, capital I, lowercase NK. Now that we have the layer name, let's create a WhiteInk swatch. Go to your Swatches panel and click the drop-down menu in the upper right corner. Select New Swatch. The New Swatch panel will appear. Now if you're using an earlier version of Illustrator, you're going to see that there's a box that says Name with Color Value. You need to deselect that box. As soon as you do that, you can see that you can now edit the swatch name. But in 2017, you're already going to see that that's highlighted in blue for you to rename. Name this exactly the same way you named your layer, WhiteInk. Again, this is case sensitive and specific to the HP 7900 press. Under Color Type, select Spot, and under Color Mode, make sure that it's in CMYK. Now go to your sliders and create a color that you want to use for your WhiteInk. At TPSi, we generally use 100% magenta as our WhiteInk spot color, but you can use anything you'd like as long as it isn't 100% K. The press isn't looking for the color of the swatch, but it's looking for the swatch to be a spot color that's labeled WhiteInk. Once you've got your color, click OK. Now you know you have your WhiteInk swatch properly loaded if you see a black dot in the lower right-hand corner of your swatch. This designates it as a spot color. I would also recommend deleting all the extra swatches in your Swatches panel except for the first four and your WhiteInk spot color. Okay, now you can select the swatch, and since we're only using the WhiteInk layer, you can begin creating your design. Now since I already have mine created, all I'm going to do is select everything on my artboard and apply the swatch to it. Now we generally have our press operator apply 4 hits of WhiteInk to the designs to ensure good opacity, but WhiteInk will also work applied as a transparency. Let's say that I want to apply a transparency to this bar at the bottom of my business card. I'm still using the same WhiteInk swatch and I'm just adjusting the transparency. In this case, I'm going to adjust it to about 45%. Once you have your design completed, also make sure that you have all of your type converted to outlines. Now I've already done that here, but if you haven't, you just need to select all of your text, go up to Type, and select Create Outlines. Now take your selection tool and select all of the elements where you've applied WhiteInk. Once those are selected, go to the Attributes panel and select Overprint Fill. Now if your design has strokes, you'll also select the Overprint stroke unless it's grayed out. And if it's grayed out, don't worry about it and just select Overprint Fill. Okay, now that you've done that, you can save your file as a native Illustrator file. Once that's finished saving, now you're going to want to save it as a PDF. At TPSi, we prefer having files submitted as PDFs, and it's only if we have to troubleshoot your file will we ask you for the native Illustrator file. To save as a PDF, go to Save As, and you'll see the Save As panel appear. Name your file, where you want to save it to, and in the Format drop-down menu, select Adobe PDF. Now the Save Adobe PDF panel will appear in the General Settings category. In order to get the best output on our HP Indigo 7900, we ask that you change the PDF settings. In the preset, instead of the default entry, open up the drop-down menu and select Press Quality. In the standard drop-down menu, select PDF X4 2010. You'll notice in the compatibility field it will automatically change to Acrobat 7 or higher. Under the Option settings, go ahead and deselect the Preserve Illustrator editing capabilities. Leaving this checked will unnecessarily bloat the size of your file. Now we're going to move out of the General Settings into the Marks and Bleeds settings. At TPSi, we ask that you only check the trim marks under the Printer's Marks section. Don't use any of these other settings. In the Bleed section, use Document Bleed settings if you have a bleed. Click the Save PDF and you should see your PDF open up. I'm using Adobe Acrobat DC, and even if you have an earlier version of Acrobat, you'll still have the same settings that we are getting ready to look at. Now we're going to proof your file to make sure that it will print correctly. Once you have your PDF file open, you should see your trim marks and the designated bleed areas. Once you've seen that those are set correctly, go to Tools and look for Print Production. Open up that section, then look for Output Preview. Now you'll notice right away that a panel will open up, and the only thing I want you to pay attention to is the separation section at the bottom of that panel. You'll notice that it will show you all the process plates as well as the spot plates. If you've set your file up correctly, you should see a white ink spot color listed under the spot plates. You'll also notice that it's at 0%. So what you're going to need to do at this point is take your cursor and start moving it all over the areas where you've applied the white ink. You should see it register at 100% in areas that you've assigned it to 100%, and as a transparency percentage in the areas where you've assigned it the transparency. If all of this is reading correctly, then that's it. Your file is ready to send to us for printing.